Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Andrea Ewart. I am the president of the Organization of Women in International Trade, or OWIT. On your screen is Ambassador Darcy Vedder, who is being honored as the OWIT 2015 Woman of the Year. But first, a few words about OWIT, our award, and a little bit about Ambassador Vedder herself. OWIT is a worldwide nonprofit organization that focuses on helping women develop and execute global trade opportunities. Its membership comprises women and men sharing knowledge, mentoring peers and youth, connecting with counterparts in other countries, and exchanging business contacts and referrals. OWIT's strength is the global expertise of its members across our 28 chapters and comprising more than 2,000 global and virtual members. To learn more about our organization as well as our programs, please visit our site at www.owit.org. And we have a long-standing tradition of annually recognizing women who, through their dedication, energy, and passion, have made meaningful contributions towards advancing women in international trade and business. For her leadership role in international economic development and trade capacity building programs, as well as her direct contributions to shaping U.S. trade policy, the OWIT International 2015 Woman of the Year is Ambassador Vedder. Ambassador Vedder, thank you very much for joining us. And let me share a few words about you to give our viewers some context. You currently serve as the Chief Agricultural Negotiator with the rank of Ambassador at the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative. Ambassador Vedder is responsible for bilateral and multilateral negotiations and policy coordination regarding agricultural trade. In your role as U.S. Department of Agriculture Deputy Undersecretary, Ambassador Vedder oversaw the, well, you weren't ambassador at that time, were you?
No.
Yeah. So Ms. Vedder oversaw the department's international activities. She had key responsibilities in international trade negotiations and export assistance programs and coordinated USDA's role in international food aid. Before joining USDA, she served as an international trade advisor on the Democratic staff of the U.S. Senate Committee on Finance, where she advised Chairman Max Baucus and other committee members on trade issues relating to agriculture, the environment, and labor, including the 2008 Farm Bill and pending legislation on climate change. That strikes a chord, as today there is a new accord being signed today at the United Nations. You must be very proud to see that your work started in 2008 or before that, continuing.
So yes, it is a momentous day. It's Earth Day and an opportunity for our countries to sign on in Paris. We were not successful in Congress at passing that climate change legislation, but we did have an opportunity to set up a series of hearings and debates about the ways that the United States could contribute to combating global warming. So it is satisfying to see that agenda move forward.
Yes, absolutely. Very exciting. So let me finish your bio by saying we will share the rest of that information on our website as well as in our newsletter that will that we're highlighting our awardees. And just finalize by saying you received your Master of Public Affairs degree and a certificate in Science, Technology, and Environmental Policy from the Woodrow Wilson School at Princeton and undergraduate degree from Drake University in Des Moines. And you grew up in Nebraska on a family farm. I find that so fascinating. But before we get to that, can you say a little bit about what do you do as Chief Agricultural Negotiator for the United States?
Well, you described my official position description in sort of overseeing negotiations and trade policy relating to agriculture. On a daily basis, that could be, again, negotiating a trade agreement like the Trans-Pacific Partnership that we just completed, figuring out how we might reduce our tariffs and get other countries to do the same, looking at negotiations related to rules on things like animal and plant health, how countries will enforce those obligations to make sure that products are treated fairly. It might include negotiations or conversations at the World Trade Organization, looking at commitments related to agriculture, whether those are on tariffs or rules or domestic support and agricultural subsidies around the world. And it might just be problem solving. Many times a country will enact a new regulation or start to enact particular measures at the border that we think don't treat our products fairly or create a burden or a hurdle that makes it hard to do business, and we might reach out to our government counterparts and attempt to solve the problem. I also spend a lot of my time on the Hill. As you know, we just completed the Trans-Pacific Partnership negotiations with 11 other countries for a new free trade agreement. And so I'm spending a lot of my time meeting with members of Congress, explaining the deal, how it will work, what advantages it will give to U.S. industry. And I'm going to cities around the country, making sure that farmers and ranchers and people in agribusiness understand the benefits of the agreement as well.
Wow. Very, very impressive. I'm so glad that we have someone as competent as yourself doing all of these, playing such a fantastic role, an important role in agriculture, export of agricultural products from the U.S. Now, you grew up on a farm in Nebraska, which obviously explains your interest in agriculture, but it's still a bit of a journey, I think, from a farm in Nebraska to your current position. Could you share a bit about your journey and what have been some highlights?
Sure. I did grow up on a farm in Nebraska, but I was lucky that I also grew up in a farmhouse where around the dinner table we talked about international events and what was going on in the world a lot. My family were also specialty producers. My father switched to organic agriculture in 1975, well before that movement really took off in the United States. And so early on in my childhood, we were looking to use direct exports to help launch our business model and make it work. Some of you may remember the farm credit crisis of the 1980s when a lot of people lost their land. And I remember seeing several of my friends who had to move to town because they were no longer able to keep farming. What kept my family's farm afloat was finding a market for our organic soybeans for tofu makers in Japan. So international trade was part of my growing up experience for a very long time.
Yeah, very, very interesting. So what role, if any, have mentors and or women's networks like OWIT, or specifically the DC chapter, played in your journey?
Well, I think international trade is, certainly here in Washington, D.C., is an area where women have been leaders for a very long time. And so after, I did my undergraduate degree, as you had noted, in Des Moines, so in a heavily agricultural part of the country, but focused on international affairs. Continued that study at Princeton at the Woodrow Wilson School, where I focused on public policy, actually more on environmental policy, and then ended up at the U.S. Trade Representative's office in the Environment and Natural Resources Office, looking at how we can address environmental issues through trade, or make sure that that trade and environment intersection is handled in a way that doesn't compromise our environmental goals. And the assistant USTR in that office was a woman, and in fact the entire office was full of women. So right after graduate school, I was literally surrounded by women with strong expertise in international trade. There have been a few women USTRs at the helm of our organization. So I have not lacked for role models, and for that I'm very grateful. And I think it speaks to you in OWIT that you're really fostering that mentorship back and forth so that there are role models in all different aspects of careers in international trade, really reinforcing one another.
Thank you. And you yourself are a very powerful role model right now to those of us following in your footsteps. OWIT International is going through a strategic planning activity to determine its vision through 2025. One of our goals is to make OWIT an internationally renowned organization. Do you have any advice for us? How can an organization like OWIT give value?
Well, I thought about what it means to be a woman in international trade when I learned I had received this award, and it's so much broader than we may typically think. From Washington, D.C.'s perspective, we're always worried about the policy end of things, and so a lot of the professionals in trade I work with are doing trade negotiation or looking at government policy or legislation. But women in international trade are so much more than that. It's the individuals and companies writing international contracts. It's the development professional in a nonprofit organization who's helping women in developing countries find out what the rules are so they can export their products. All of those are our trade professionals. And so I think one of the strengths of an organization like OWIT is that they can attract people at each of those different points in the international trade spectrum, all along the chain from creating policy to having an individual business and helping them export for the first time. And we all need each other in order to write agreements that do the right thing, to make sure that the rules actually pertain to and assist people at the retail level. We do a better job when we rely on each other. And so the broader, I think, the definition and outreach to people who are really trade professionals but might not think to call themselves that, I think is particularly important. And it's an area that I myself have been trying to push myself to say, wait, who should I ask? Who are the people we haven't reached out to that will actually use the rules that we make down the line, and how can I make it easier for them to do business?
Thank you very much. That is very helpful, very, very insightful. We actually at OWIT see some of that disparity or that coalition, for want of a better word, across our chapters. So whereas the chapter in DC does tend to have a lot of people who work on policy, who are, on the Hill, our chapter in Charleston tends to have people who are much more involved in logistics, and then most of our international chapters do have entrepreneurs. They're very, very interested in outreach to the global market. But at the same time, I am very aware that someone looking at the DC chapter might think, oh, it's all a bunch of lawyers, working on the Hill or, doing trade negotiations, etc. And so thank you very much for those words of wisdom. I think they will serve us very well as we move through our strategic planning exercise. Thank you very much again for accepting the OWIT Award, and we wish you all the best in your continued career.
Well, thank you very much. Again, it's quite an honor to be recognized by OWIT, again, for all that you do to support and provide outreach to women who are trying to advance their careers. I am so pleased to be able to be a part of this organization this year. Thank you.
Thank you.